The salvage crew almost ignored the signal. It was weak, old, and drifting far outside the normal trade routes. Most ships that far out were nothing but broken metal and forgotten dreams. But 10 seconds after their scanners locked onto the object, everything changed. The readings made no sense. The ship was dead, and yet something inside it was still awake. The ardent wayfarer moved slowly through the silent darkness. Captain Lyra Harville watched the drifting vessel on the main screen. She was human, born on a mining colony where nothing survived without effort. Salvage work suited her. It rewarded patience, caution, and a little bit of luck. Beside her stood Keth, the ship's navigation officer. His species, the Arun, had long limbs and pale blue skin that shimmered under the bridge lights. He tilted his head as he studied the data. "It's ancient," Keth said quietly. "At least 3 centuries old. Human design." That caught everyone's attention. Human ships from that era were rare. Back then, humanity had only recently joined the wider galactic community. Their technology had been considered crude, their methods reckless. Many species believed humans would not survive long in space. Yet somehow, humans had endured. Engineer Thomas Rell leaned forward in his chair. "Hull integrity is surprisingly stable," he said. "But there's no power, no life support, no transmissions. It's completely dead." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Then why is it still transmitting a beacon?" No one answered. The signal repeated every 30 seconds. Weak. Automatic. Persistent. Like a heartbeat refusing to stop. They moved closer. The ship appeared slowly from the darkness, its surface scarred by time and micrometeor impacts. Parts of the hull were burned black. Old markings were barely visible beneath layers of dust. The name had almost faded away, but the letters could still be read. ESS Meridian. Keth let out a slow breath. Early expansion era. Humans were experimenting a lot back then. "That's one way to say it," Thomas muttered. "Most species called it madness." Lyra smiled faintly. Humans had always been called mad by someone. "Full scan," she ordered. The scanners swept across the ship. Cargo bays were empty. Engines cold. Weapons systems non-existent. Everything pointed to one conclusion: junk. Then Thomas froze. "Captain, you need to see this." A new reading appeared on the screen. Half of the ship's internal volume was occupied by a single structure. A reservoir. And it was enormous. "That can't be fuel," Keth said. "No ship that size needs a tank that large." Lyra crossed her arms. "Can you scan inside it?" Thomas shook his head slowly. "No. Something is blocking the readings. The material doesn't match anything in the database." The bridge grew quiet. Unknown materials meant risk. But they also meant value. "Prepare a boarding team," Lyra said. Minutes later, the airlock opened with a dull metallic sound. Lyra floated into the abandoned ship with 2 crew members behind her. Their suit lights cut through the darkness, revealing dust drifting in slow motion. The interior looked primitive. Manual switches. Thick wiring. Physical control panels instead of modern holographic systems. It felt like stepping into history. Humans really flew like this? Keth asked over comms. Lyra chuckled softly. "We still do sometimes." They moved deeper into the ship. Everything was silent. No signs of struggle. No damage from weapons. It looked as if the crew had simply vanished. Then they reached engineering. The reservoir filled the entire rear section of the ship. A massive cylinder, smooth and perfectly intact. Its surface reflected their lights like dark glass. Lyra reached out and touched it. Her glove sensors immediately warned her. Density readings spiked beyond normal limits. "This isn't metal," she whispered. Thomas tried a scanner. The readings collapsed into static. "It's wrong," he said. "Like the scanner can't decide what it's looking at." Lyra felt a strange unease. The ship was dead, but this thing felt alive. Not moving. Not breathing. Just waiting. Check the ship's logs, she ordered. They restored temporary power to the main computer. The ancient system flickered, struggling to wake after centuries of silence. Files appeared slowly, many corrupted or incomplete. Then a final log entry opened. Thomas read it aloud, his voice tight. Containment stable. Fuel reservoir at 100% capacity. Warning, unauthorized access may result in catastrophic energy release. He stopped. How catastrophic? Keth asked. Thomas swallowed. Estimated destruction radius, 100,000 kilometers. Silence filled the comm channel. Lyra stared at the reservoir again. Suddenly, salvage money didn't matter anymore. Back to the ship, she said calmly. Now. They returned to the ardent wayfarer without argument. As soon as the airlock sealed, Lyra ordered full retreat distance. The ancient ship drifted alone once more. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Thomas spoke quietly. Captain, I'm detecting a power fluctuation. On the screen, a faint light appeared deep inside the reservoir. It pulsed once. Slow. Steady. Like a heartbeat. Ketha's voice dropped to a whisper. That's impossible. The reactor is dead. Another pulse followed. Systems inside the old ship began to awaken. Tiny signals spread through circuits that had been silent for 300 years. On one recovered monitor, a single word appeared. Active. Lyra felt a chill run through her. Whatever humans had built back then, it had not died. And now, after centuries alone in the dark, it was waking up. She made her decision quickly. We take it to Orion Research Station. This is bigger than salvage. Keth nodded slowly. You think it's a weapon? Lyra watched the ancient ship drift beside them. No, she said quietly. I think it's something humans made when they refused to accept limits. Behind them, unseen by anyone, the reservoir pulsed again, stronger this time. As if it had finally been found. And somewhere deep inside the impossible structure, old human code completed a process that had waited 300 years to finish. The signal changed. Not a distress call anymore. An invitation. The news spread through Orion Research Station faster than anyone expected. Within hours, scientists, engineers, and security officers filled the observation decks, staring at the ancient human ship floating inside the containment bay. What had first looked like scrap metal was now treated like a sleeping giant. No one knew whether it would save lives or end them. Captain Lyra Harville stood behind the observation glass, arms folded, watching the steady pulse coming from deep inside the reservoir. Every few seconds, the glow brightened and faded again. Calm. Controlled. Patient. It's regulating itself, said Professor Yarin, a tall Valori physicist whose species valued logic above all else. His long fingers moved across a holographic display. There is no decay in the energy signature. No instability. That should be impossible after 3 centuries. Lyra nodded slightly. Humans had heard that word many times before. Impossible. Thomas stood beside her, looking uneasy. If the warning in the logs is correct, one mistake could destroy half the station. And yet it hasn't, Lyra replied. That means someone designed it to survive. Across the bay, drones scanned the ship again and again, but every result ended the same way. The reservoir refused to reveal its secrets. Energy readings bent around it. Sensors failed to penetrate its surface. Even advanced quantum scanners returned incomplete data. It was as if the container existed slightly outside normal space. 3 days passed. The pulse never stopped. Then a human arrived. Dr. Amora Voss stepped off the transport shuttle with tired eyes and a mind already racing ahead of everyone else. She was known across several systems as a specialist in early human experimental technology. When she heard about the discovery, she had cancelled every other project and come immediately. The moment she saw the reservoir, she froze. That's not possible, she whispered. Lyra noticed the change instantly. You recognize it. Amora walked closer to the glass, studying the readings. Her hands trembled slightly as she zoomed in on the energy patterns. I've seen these equations before, she said slowly. But only in classified archives. Old Earth projects. Projects that were shut down. Professor Yarin leaned forward. What kind of projects? Amora hesitated. Then she answered quietly. The kind that scared everyone. The room went silent. She explained that during humanity's early expansion era, humans had faced a problem. Other species had faster ships, stronger defenses, and more efficient energy systems. Humans were always trying to catch up, always trying to survive. So some scientists decided to stop playing safe. They tried to access zero-point energy, Amora said. Energy drawn directly from space itself. Several alien scientists reacted immediately. That theory was abandoned centuries ago, Yarin said sharply. Containment requirements alone make it impossible. Amora gave a small, tired smile. Yes. That's what everyone told us. Images appeared on the screen, old laboratories, prototype ships, and warning reports marked in red. 6 experimental vessels were built, she continued. The first 3 failed catastrophically. The 4th disappeared during testing. The 5th and 6th were listed as lost. Lyra looked back at the ancient ship drifting in the bay. And you think this is one of them? Amora nodded slowly. I think this is proof that they succeeded. The implication hung heavy in the air. If true, the reservoir contained nearly limitless energy. Enough to power cities, fleets, maybe entire worlds. It could end energy shortages across the galaxy. Or destroy everything nearby in an instant. Security Chief Deg, a heavily armored Run warrior, crossed his arms. Then why leave it drifting in space? Amora's expression softened. Because early humans knew something important. If they couldn't control it safely, no one should use it yet. That answer didn't make anyone feel better. Over the next 2 days, teams worked non-stop recovering more data from the ship's corrupted systems. Piece by piece, the story became clearer. The crew of the Meridian had not died from an accident. They had deliberately shut the ship down. Logs suggested they realized the technology worked, but also understood the danger of releasing it too soon. They had hidden it. And waited. Lyra stood alone in the observation room late that night, watching the steady pulse. She imagined the original crew making that decision. Alone in deep space. Knowing no one might ever find their work. That's a very human thing to do, Amora said quietly from behind her. Lyra glanced back. Risk everything. Amora shook her head. Hope someone smarter comes later. The pulse suddenly grew brighter. Both women turned toward the glass. Energy readings spiked for a brief second before stabilizing again. Systems inside the old ship flickered to life. Lights blinked faintly along its corridors. It's reacting, Amora said. To what? Lyra asked. Before anyone could answer, a new signal appeared on the monitoring screens. Not random noise. Not system diagnostics. A message. Old human code translated slowly into modern language. Awaiting authorized access. Professor Yarin stared at the display. It's waiting for instructions. Amora's eyes widened. No, it's waiting for someone. The realization spread through the room like cold air. The ship had not been abandoned. It had been left behind intentionally. As a test. As alarms quietly activated across the station, Lyra felt the weight of something larger than salvage, larger than science. Humans had built this when they were desperate, when they had nothing but stubborn belief and dangerous ideas. And somehow, against all logic, it had survived. The reservoir pulsed again, stronger than before. Not threatening. Expectant. Somewhere deep inside the impossible structure, ancient systems recognized something they had not sensed in 300 years. Human presence. And for the first time since it had drifted into darkness, the ship began preparing for the next step. The message changed everything. Until that moment, the ancient ship had been treated like a dangerous artifact, something to study from a safe distance. Now it felt different. The words on the screen were simple, but they carried intention. Awaiting authorized access. The system was not broken. It was waiting. Inside Orion Research Station, tension grew quickly. Security drones multiplied around the containment bay. Emergency evacuation routes were prepared. Every species on the station understood the risk. If the human experiment failed after activation, there would be no time to escape. Yet no one looked away. Because if it worked, it would change the future. Dr. Amora Voss stood in front of the main console, reading the old code again and again. The language was outdated, but the logic behind it felt familiar. Human engineers had always built systems that expected failure, and planned for someone else to fix it later. They didn't want just anyone opening it, she said quietly. Captain Lyra Harville leaned against the wall, watching the glowing reservoir through the observation window. So what counts as authorized? Amora hesitated. That's what worries me. Early human projects often used biometric and psychological checks together. Professor Yarin frowned. Psychological? Yes, Amora said. The system might be testing intent. The idea unsettled everyone in the room. Technology that judged motives sounded dangerously close to intelligence. Thomas adjusted his scanner. Energy output is increasing slowly. Not unstable, just waking up. The pulse inside the reservoir had grown stronger. Still steady, still calm, but no longer faint. It felt less like a machine and more like something gathering strength after a long sleep. Then another message appeared. Human operator required. All eyes turned toward Lyra and Amora. Security Chief Deix spoke first. Absolutely not. We don't know what activating this system will do. Amora crossed her arms. If we do nothing, it may activate on its own. The system is already progressing through startup cycles. Lyra looked back at the ship. She felt a strange pull toward it, something she couldn't explain. Humans had built it. Humans had left instructions behind. Maybe they had always expected another human to finish the work. Then we do it carefully, she said. Preparation took hours. The station moved to maximum safe distance while maintaining remote connections. Emergency jump ships waited nearby. Every possible safety measure was activated. Still, fear lingered. When the airlock opened, Lyra and Amora entered the ancient ship alone. The interior lights flickered faintly now, powered by energy drawn from the reservoir itself. Dust still floated in the airless corridors, but the ship no longer felt dead. Systems hummed softly beneath the floor. It's like it knew we were coming, Amora whispered. They reached engineering. The massive reservoir glowed softly, its surface reflecting shifting patterns of light. Symbols appeared briefly across it, then faded again, old human interface markers trying to communicate. Amora connected a portable terminal. The system responded immediately. Ancient data flooded the screen. Equations, safety protocols, and personal logs from the original crew. Voices from 3 centuries ago filled the silence. One recording played automatically. A tired human voice spoke. If you're hearing this, it means the containment held. That means we were right. But listen carefully, this system isn't just power. It amplifies intention. Fear destabilizes it. Greed overloads it. Cooperation stabilizes it. We designed it that way because humanity learned the hard way that power without responsibility destroys everything. The recording ended. Lyra exchanged a glance with Amora. They built a moral limiter, Amora said slowly. I thought it was just a theory. The reservoir pulsed brighter, reacting to their presence. Energy readings stabilized as they stood near it. Back on the station, Professor Yarin stared at the data in disbelief. The energy fluctuations are synchronizing with their neural patterns. It's responding to them. Deix's voice tightened over comms. That sounds dangerously close to alive. Inside engineering, another message appeared on Amora's screen. Final authorization sequence ready. Her hands hovered over the controls. If we continue, she said quietly, there's no guarantee we can stop it. Lyra looked at the glowing structure. She imagined the original crew making this same choice. Afraid, uncertain, but unwilling to abandon what they had created. Humans had never waited for perfect safety. They moved forward anyway. "Do it," Lyra said. Amora pressed the command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reservoir erupted with light, not explosive, but controlled. Energy flowed through the ship's systems in smooth waves. Panels lit up. Engines long silent began running diagnostics. Outside, sensors across the station spiked. Power output climbed beyond measurable limits, then suddenly leveled off. Perfectly stable. Professor Yarin stared at the readings, stunned. "It's balancing itself." Inside the ship, the final log unlocked. The last message from the original captain appeared on screen. "We knew we couldn't finish this alone. Humanity never does anything alone for long. If you've made it this far, it means you understood the most important rule. Power isn't about domination. It's about survival together." The lights dimmed slightly as the system settled into a steady rhythm. The test was over, and humanity had passed. But the story wasn't finished. Because as new data streamed across the station sensors, a distant signal answered the activation, a signal coming from deep space. Someone else had been waiting for this technology to wake up, and they were already on their way. The signal arrived silently. At first, no one noticed it among the thousands of transmissions passing through Orion Research Station every second. But the station's long-range sensors did. A faint pattern repeating from deep space, moving closer with impossible speed. Professor Yarin stared at the data, his calm expression finally breaking. "That signal is not random," he said. "It's a response." Captain Lyra Harville felt tension rise across the command deck. Response to what? Yarin turned the display toward her. To the activation of the reservoir. The room went quiet. For 300 years, the ancient human ship had drifted unnoticed. The moment it awakened, something far away had answered. Security Chief Deg immediately began issuing orders. Defense drones powered up. Civilian ships were instructed to prepare for emergency departure. Orion Station had seen conflicts before, but nothing like this. Amora Voss watched the incoming data with growing concern. "The energy signature, it's older than most known civilizations," she said. "Whatever is coming has been tracking this technology for a long time." Lyra crossed her arms. "You think they want it?" Amora shook her head slowly. "I think they're afraid of it." Hours passed. The signal grew stronger. Then long-range scanners finally detected the source, a fleet emerging from deep space, ships shaped unlike anything in the Galactic registry. Their hulls bent light around them, making exact measurements difficult. They moved with calm certainty. Not rushing. Not hiding. Approaching. The station commander called an emergency council. Representatives from multiple species gathered, fear and curiosity mixing in equal measure. "They outclass us," Deg said bluntly. "If this becomes hostile, we cannot win." A murmur spread through the room. Lyra remained silent, thinking. Humans had faced stronger enemies before. Winning was not always about strength. Sometimes it was about understanding. When the fleet entered communication range, a transmission arrived immediately. No threats. No demands. Just a single statement translated into every known language. "You have awakened forbidden fire." The message repeated once, then stopped. Amora exhaled slowly. They know exactly what this is. Another transmission followed. "This technology nearly destroyed civilizations before yours learned to travel the stars. It must be contained." Professor Yarin looked unsettled. "They're not asking. They are warning." The council erupted into arguments. Some demanded surrender of the ship. Others insisted on preparing defenses. Fear spread quickly, as it always did when the unknown appeared stronger. Lyra finally spoke. "What if they're not wrong?" The room fell silent. She continued calmly. "Humans built this when we were desperate. Maybe others tried before us and failed. Maybe that's why they're here." Derek frowned. "You want to hand it over?" No, Lyra said. I want to understand why they're afraid. Amora nodded slowly. The reservoir responds to intention. Cooperation stabilizes it. Fear destabilizes it. If they approach this with fear, they might actually cause the disaster they're trying to prevent. Outside the station, the alien fleet stopped at a respectful distance. They made no aggressive moves, but their presence alone was enough to make everyone uneasy. Then something unexpected happened. The reservoir pulse changed. Inside the ancient human ship, the rhythm grew faster, reacting to the tension around it. Energy readings fluctuated slightly for the first time since activation. Professor Yarin's voice sharpened. Emotional stress across the station is affecting stability. Amora closed her eyes briefly. The system is amplifying collective intent. Too much fear, and containment weakens. Lyra realized the danger immediately. The situation itself was becoming the threat. She opened a direct communication channel to the approaching fleet. "This is Captain Lyra Harville of Orion Station," she said steadily. "We are not your enemy. And we're not trying to weaponize this technology." For several seconds, there was no reply. Then the screen filled with the image of an unfamiliar being. Tall, pale, with luminous eyes that seemed older than stars. Its voice carried calm authority. "We are the Ethrin," it said. "We have watched young civilizations destroy themselves chasing infinite power. Your species now stands at that edge." Lyra met its gaze. "Then help us step back from it." The Ethrin paused, clearly surprised. Most civilizations defended their discoveries. Few asked for guidance. Amora stepped forward beside Lyra. "Humans didn't build this to dominate," she said. "They built it to survive. And they left safeguards. The system responds to cooperation. That's why it hasn't failed." The alien figure studied them carefully. "Your creators showed unusual restraint," it said slowly. "That is rare." Behind them, the reservoir's pulse began to stabilize again, responding to the calmer atmosphere. Professor Yarin watched the readings in disbelief. "It's working," he whispered. "Dialogue is stabilizing the energy field." The realization spread quickly. This was not a weapon race. It was a test of behavior. The Ethrin spoke again. "Long ago, our own people created something similar. We failed. Entire systems were lost. Since then, we have prevented others from repeating our mistake." Lyra nodded. "Then maybe this time is different." Silence followed. For the first time since their arrival, the alien fleet powered down several weapon systems, a small but meaningful gesture. Inside engineering, the ancient human ship responded immediately. The pulse slowed, becoming steady once more, as if recognizing trust. But the Ethrin's next words carried warning. "The activation has already been detected by others less patient than we are," the alien said. "You have little time. Those who seek power without understanding are coming." Lyra felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. Humanity's old experiment had survived 3 centuries. Now it faced its greatest challenge. Not survival, but proving that humanity, and everyone around them, had learned enough to deserve it. The warning came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected multiple warp signatures tearing through space at the edge of the system. Unlike the calm arrival of the Ethrin, these ships moved aggressively, their engines burning at unsafe levels. They were not coming to talk. They were coming to claim. Inside Orion Research Station, alarms echoed through the corridors. Civilian vessels began emergency departures while defense systems powered up again. Fear returned quickly, and with it, the reservoir's pulse began to fluctuate. Professor Yarin's voice carried urgency. "Energy stability dropping. The system is reacting to the panic." Amora Voss stared at the readings. If conflict starts, the feedback loop could destabilize containment. Captain Lyra Harville understood immediately. The danger was no longer just the approaching fleet. It was what everyone might become in response to it. The incoming ships belonged to a coalition known for conquest and resource seizure. They had intercepted the activation signal and come for one reason: unlimited energy meant unlimited power. A transmission burst through the station's channels. Surrender the human vessel immediately. Resistance will be removed. Security Chief Deg clenched his fists. We can't hold them off. The Etherin fleet shifted position beside the station, not attacking, but forming a protective line. Their presence alone slowed the approaching armada, but everyone knew it would not be enough if fighting began. Inside the ancient human ship, the reservoir pulsed faster. Lyra watched the readings and made a decision. Stop preparing for battle, she ordered. Derek stared at her in disbelief. Captain. If we fight, she said calmly, we lose no matter who wins. Amora understood first. The system amplifies intent. Violence will destabilize it. Lyra nodded. Humans didn't build this to win wars. They built it to end desperation. She opened a system-wide channel, broadcasting to every ship in the area, allies, enemies, and observers alike. This technology cannot belong to one species, she said. If anyone tries to take it by force, it will destroy us all. The hostile fleet responded with silence at first. Then laughter echoed through the channel. Every civilization says that before it loses control. The ships advanced. Inside engineering, the reservoir's light flared dangerously bright. Warning signals spread across every monitor. Energy levels climbed toward critical thresholds. Professor Yarin's voice shook. Containment strain increasing. Amora grabbed the console. It's reacting to collective hostility. Too many minds expecting conflict. Lyra felt the pressure building. Fear, anger, desperation spreading through thousands of beings. The system was reflecting them all. Then Dr. Amora Voss did something unexpected. She shut down the station's defensive targeting systems. Across Orion Station, weapons powered down. Derek stared at her. What are you doing? Changing the signal, she said simply. The effect was immediate. The reservoir's pulse slowed slightly. Lyra understood. Humanity's strength had never been perfect weapons or superior technology. It had always been the ability to try something different when everyone else expected violence. She spoke again, her voice steady. 300 years ago, humans created this and chose not to use it. They left it behind because they believed the future might be wiser than they were. The message carried across space. We're proving them right. The Etherin fleet followed first. Their weapons powered down completely. Energy signatures shifted from combat readiness to passive shielding. A moment later, several civilian ships joined them, broadcasting non-aggression signals. The hostile fleet slowed. Confusion spread through their formation. Their strategy depended on fear and resistance. Without it, the situation no longer made sense. Inside the ancient ship, the reservoir stabilized further. The light softened, becoming calm again. Professor Yarin stared at the readings in awe. The system is balancing itself, through cooperation. The lead hostile vessel finally responded. You would share this power? Lyra answered without hesitation. Yes. Under shared control. No single species owns it. Silence followed, long and heavy. Then something changed. One by one, the approaching ships powered down their weapons. Not out of trust yet, but uncertainty. The expected battle had never begun. The reservoir pulse settled into a slow, steady rhythm. Stable. Safe. The crisis passed not with an explosion, but with understanding. Days later, representatives from dozens of civilizations gathered aboard Orion Station. Agreements were formed. The technology would be studied together, regulated together, and used carefully. No single government would control it. The Etherin observed quietly. Before departing, their leader spoke privately with Lyra and Amora. Your species is unusual, the being said. You create dangerous things, and then learn how to live with them. Amora smiled faintly. That's how humans survive. The ancient ship remained in orbit, no longer a forgotten relic. It became a symbol instead, proof that creativity without responsibility was destruction, but creativity guided by cooperation could change everything. Energy shortages across distant colonies slowly disappeared. New exploration missions launched without fear of running out of power. Worlds once isolated became connected again. And the story of the Meridian spread across the galaxy. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder. 300 years earlier, humanity had stood at the edge of something impossible. They had failed, learned, and left hope behind for others to finish. And when the moment finally came, humanity did what it always did best. Not conquer, not dominate, but adapt, unite, and turn dangerous fire into something that could light the way forward for everyone. Far inside the reservoir, the ancient system recorded its final status update. Test complete. Humanity authorized.